Okay, Civ 7 was officially, quote, revealed with a new cinematic trailer and some descriptions and a Steam store page and all of that good stuff. And I do have to say that the logo appearing with that 7 on the Z, that's just... okay, whichever designer came up with that, very good. But let's face it, we haven't actually seen anything of Civilization 7. This is a cinematic teaser. It's not any kind of reveal. This isn't like the Civ 6 reveal where when they announced Civ 6, they had this screenshots at least. So the screenshots for Civ 6 were sort of revealed immediately, and that was, I think, in March, and then the game released in October. But the important thing here is Civ 7 is set to release in 2025 with no other specifics. So there's a few things that we can talk about right now, and of course there's going to be a lot of things we can talk about through the coming months. So first of all, there is the cinematic trailer, which does show military units and cities going through the ages, and I think there are some specific references to specific historical people. It's a bit hard to tell exactly if these people are supposed to be those people. The style is very statuesque, so it's a bit hard to see in the flybys. It does show going from the ancient era, going up to the industrial and modern era to rockets. It's what you expect of a Civilization game. And with the release window set for 2025, the earliest I could expect it is, for example, around March to May. Like, I don't think it's going to be like a January or February release. Games typically don't release in January or February, so March to May would be the earliest, but they could just stick to their previous schedule and release in October. It could be towards the end of 2025, so don't hold your breath for Civ 7 just yet. But having said that, there are some things that we could talk about for a bit of fun. So for example, I have this nostalgic wish list for Civ 7. So of course, a wish list for Civ 7 would have things like better AI or stable multiplayer or, you know, just better game mechanics. But, you know, a nostalgic wish list for a player who started with Civ 2, have gone back to play Civ 1, played a lot of Civ 2, Civ 3, Civ 4. Some things that I want, for example, one is a reintroduction of the palace or throne room, or both, you know, because that was such a fun little mechanic. I like these fun little unnecessary but aesthetic mechanics and things to do, and you know, the throne room and the palace was sort of like a collectible mini game, which I know some people just don't care about, but it's nice to have the option. And we can see this sort of coming back in other games. In Crusader Kings, they added in a throne room where you can collect artifacts and treasures. When I saw that, I was taken straight back to Civ 2. So it doesn't have to be exactly like the Civ 2 throne room or the Civ 3 palaces, but it's sort of like a reintroduction of these sort of sillier, less necessary things to do, I think would be a nice addition for us nostalgic gamers. But I know a lot of people wouldn't care about that. Second, FMV advisors.
Wise men say that only fools run an empire without luxuries. King.
I disagree, Excellency.
I disagree, Your Excellency.
I do not think they will ever add this back in, but FMV advisors. FMV has been sort of coming back a little bit with a few games out there. They're using some full motion video and actual like video recordings of people, and with the, you know, remasters and remakes of the Myst games, this sort of FMV aesthetic is a little bit in the scene. Even if it's just animated advisors, that would be nice, because so far in Civ 6, the advisors, well, the governors, they're just sort of these static images, and they have a little bit of personality, but I want to have like personality-filled advisors, and advisors sort of went out of vogue for a long time. You know, every game used to have advisors. SimCity had advisors, Civilization had advisors. Every game had this panel of advisors which would have their own motives and tell you what to do based on what they want you to do. You know, build more barracks so we can, you know, I miss that guy. Or just having Elvis once again as the cultural advisor. So I would love more animated advisors to come back in. Another thing that I've always wanted, in most strategy games actually, and at least in custom game modes or alternative game modes, is layered maps. So growing up through the 90s and early 2000s, playing all of these strategy games, a number of games had layered maps, as in there's like an underground, a surface level, a sky level, like in Age of Wonders or in Metal Fatigue. And this isn't foreign to the Civ series. In Civilization Test of Time, which was sort of a overhaul / standalone release of a Civ 2 redo kind of thing. So Civilization Test of Time had a fantasy map where you had underground, underwater, surface, and sky, and you could have civilization starting in the sky layer, or like the merfolk started their civilization in the underwater layer, and it was unbalanced, and it was broken, and it was just not kind of working very well at all, but it was fun, it was interesting, it was a novelty at least. And I just generally really love layered maps, and I know that might not work in the standard competitive Civilization game, but having it as an option in an alternative game mode, that might be nice. And of course, speaking of alternative game modes, more thematic maps. So Civ 6 sort of did this, where they had like the Australia economic challenge scenario or the survive the zombie apocalypse scenario. But it sort of introduced these alternative maps as shorter multiplayer kind of experiences to finish in an hour or less kind of thing. And they were fun, they were interesting, but it's not quite what I enjoy. I want like alternative maps completely. So sort of linked to the layered maps, but it's not specifically necessarily layered. But in Test of Time, there was the fantasy map, where you played fantasy races, where you had elves and dwarves and goblins and angels as civilizations, and you fought on this fantasy map with quests on the map. And the quests were kind of broken, but you could win the game by building the Great Siege Engine or connecting the Rainbow Bridge, Bifrost, to Valhalla. You know, there's these weird ways to win, but it wasn't just a short game mode, it was a full Civilization game. There was also a sci-fi mode, where it sort of had you on an alternative Earth, like even more alternative than the standard Earth map, but there was a Civ that started on Alpha Centauri by themselves, and this was also very unbalanced. There's ways to balance it, but it's on Alpha Centauri. When you actually built the spaceship to go to Alpha Centauri, what happened then was you gained a settler and some military units on an entirely new planet. So it was a full game of Civ, where the players are split, some on the alien planet, some on the Earth planet, and eventually they meet on the alien planet. And it was very weird, it was very strange, but it's something that I would like to see that kind of stuff come back. Not just short multiplayer thematic scenarios, but actually full-on different game modes to play Civilization in. But this is just my nostalgic wish list of Civilization 7. I don't actually expect them to add any of these things, it's just, I'd like to see a return in some form of these things. There's ways to make it work. But of course there's the actual real wish list, which is good AI, good balance, nice looks. Which, speaking of, we haven't even seen a screenshot yet, so we don't even know what the game looks like. But I think the main question is, who's going to be the narrator? So Civilization, for many games now, has always had this signature narrator to read out quotes from when you research text and stuff. And we don't know if they're gonna do it again, but if they bring back a narrator, who's it gonna be? Idris Elba? Stephen Fry? Shore Aghdashloo? All could be good, but there's many options out there. They tend to get a famous celebrity or a famous voice actor, not just a good voice actor. So we'll see if they do bring back a signature voice and who it's gonna be. But I don't know, let me know, who would you want to voice Civilization 7? Because I think that's something that we can talk about right now, and I'm sure they've got their pick already. But also, just to go over some details that they did put on the Steam page, they haven't had much. They didn't put any system requirements, they didn't put any particular stats or anything like that, but they do actually confirm that yes, it is Firaxis who is continuing to work on this. I know that was sort of a given, but you never know in today's climate. They could just give it to another developer. But no, it is Firaxis working on Civ 7. And you'll be building architectural wonders, conquering territory, and cooperating with rivals, and all the stuff that we already know. And of course they use the term, will you build an empire that stands the test of time? They always use this phrase, standing the test of time. But it seems like the Civ series has forgotten the game that they made that's actually called Test of Time. It's a very niche, unknown version of Civ these days, but it is a personal favorite, despite how weird and unbalanced it was. Test of Time was actually a fun game to play. But yeah, anyway, that's what we know so far about Civ 7. Basically not much, but now that it's officially on the way, and not just, yeah, we're making Civ 7, no, it's announced now, Civ 7. I want to know what you think, because I'm going to be covering as much as I can going forward when they announce things, so we'll see how that goes. And I'm just kind of waiting for the first screenshot, because we can see a lot from a first screenshot. And also, one big question is, how is this going to stand up to all the other competitors out there? There's a lot of games that are trying to compete with Civ, so Civ 7 has to be above the rest if they want to succeed. Because we've seen a lot of franchises die and be overtaken by an indie replacement that actually turned out to be better. So Civ 7 needs to deliver. But anyway, that's what we know so far about Civ 7. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.